What's up, guys? Mr. SLIN here, and today I'm going to be answering some of your questions. As you guys know, I'm a medic main. I've been playing competitive TF2 for 11 years, and many of you guys have been posting questions to me in the comments of my YouTube videos or in my Discord server. If you head over and over there, there's a channel where it's just dedicated to asking me questions, and I try and type them back, but sometimes they require longer explanations, and so I figured I'd put them all into a video. So without further ado, let me hop into these questions. First one comes from White Star, who asks, what's the general, most important, and reliable way to do well as a medic on mostly any map or division? I would say that if you want to get good at medic, and I'm just giving general advice to anyone who's trying to get into the game, just stay alive. That's like the number one tip, no matter if you're playing like brand new casually or you're like a super pro. Staying alive has so many benefits for medics because what you're primarily trying to do is put out a lot of heals per second, right? You maximize how much healing you do in a game, and you want to get as many Ubers as you possibly can. And both of those things are heavily reliant on you staying alive. I mean, think about it. When you're dead, you can't heal and you can't get Ubers. And so pretty much everything you do as a medic surrounds staying alive, whether it's like how you play around your teammates or where you should be positioning yourself or how to use your crossbow or what's the right timing for Ubers. Pretty much everything has to do with just survival. And so whenever you playing, just be hyper focused on that as your skill. And you can measure that through the number of deaths that you're doing. So if you're getting a lot of deaths in a game, you're like, okay, I need to play a little bit safer or think about why you're dying. And that's one way to measure your success in this area. But I'd just say like overall survival is like so important. And what you'll find is at the lower levels of the game, it's easier to survive because your opponents are not as good at the game. And so they might be shooting random things, or they might not be going for you as much, or the game might be at a slower pace. And as you get better and better at the game, you play better players, you find their DM is stronger and they're just killing you more, or their positioning is better, or they're catching you out in more situations, or the way that they trade Ubers is just like they always pop second and kill you, things like that. So just be super, super focused on staying alive. And medic is all about being as aggressive as you possibly can without dying. So if you're staying alive too much, like push your aggression, try and be more aggressive, because you could be placing your heals, further forward on your team, or like positioning more aggressively to keep the pushes going, or to make your defenses stronger. But if you're surviving too much, then maybe you might want to ask yourself, okay, if you're dying too much, you might want to ask yourself, okay, how do I survive? Like, why am I dying? What's killing me? That kind of thing. So check both of those things, and hopefully that helps. Okay, the second question comes from Belle, who asks, how can you keep track of your skill level as a medic? I feel like it's easier to keep track of your progress as other classes, as they're more independent, but with medic, a lot of things influence your performance, such as your teammates, and I'm struggling to find the motivation to continue playing medic because of this. How do you know whether or not you're a good medic? It's a really great question, kind of a hard one to answer, but I feel there is an answer here. I think what you're trying to ask is like, as other classes, it's easier to track your performance because like as a scout or a soldier, you could say, oh, what's my kill to death ratio? Or you could say, how much damage am I doing per minute, right? Your DPM. So that happens with a lot of other classes, but as a medic, it's kind of harder, right? Because sure, you can look at your medic stats and say, oh, I died 15 times this game, or I died 5 times in this game. But it's harder because like you're kind of linked up with your teammates. So your performance is kind of based on their performance. And I get that. But I think you can still approach medic stats the same way that you approach the stats of other classes and look at your performance objectively and say, like, I played a good game or a bad game. There is a way to do that. So one way is to just look at your stats in that game compared to just like baseline normal medic stats. If you're a medic and you play a typical 30-minute 6v6 game, I would say you would expect to get, I don't know, like 8 to 10 deaths would be like a good game. If you have 5 deaths, you like played an amazing game. If you had 15 deaths, you played a pretty bad game. So somewhere around that 8 to 10 is like a good amount of deaths to be getting. I mean, obviously you don't want to be getting deaths, but that's just one way to measure it. Another way to do it is to measure your performance against the performance of the medic that you just played against. So at the end of the game, if you use logs.tf, you scroll down to the bottom and it has the medic versus medic performance. And you can see how much healing you did versus how much healing they did. And so you can see, oh, wow, they've been healing a lot more than I'm doing. So maybe their heal rotation is better, or maybe they're hitting more crossbows, or maybe they're just more efficient with the way that they're doing things. You can look at number of Uber drops. You can say like, wow, I dropped 2 Ubers and they only dropped 1. So that's another way to compare yourself. And finally, you can take a look at how many Ubers you got. And I know this is very closely related to how many deaths that you got, but there's just another way. Just look at the head-to-head meta comparison and just look at the way that you did that. At the bottom, it'll also tell you heal percentages. So it'll say like your scout got 26%, your demo man got 10%, your other scout got 5% or something. And you can look at those heal distributions and say, wow, like the way that they're playing, they're giving their demo man a lot more heals than I'm giving. So how can I adjust my gameplay to either be more like them, or maybe they're not doing so well, so be not like them. But that's how you can do the head-to-head meta comparisons. And then when I do those comparisons, I look at the other medic and I go, okay, what skill level is this person playing at? Oh, they're playing in intermediate, they're playing in newcomer, they're playing in main. And then I can go, okay, so I'm kind of at that level-ish. So that's how you would do it. It's not as clean as looking at other classes, I'll admit, but it is a way to do a comparison that can get you a better sense of what skill level you are at. And yeah, like I said, use those baseline numbers to kind of understand if you're doing well in that game in general. Hopefully that helps. One more thing I would say is you said you're struggling to find motivation to continue playing Medic because of this problem. And that's kind of related to the next question from Pyroburger, who asks, how do you deal with being toxic to other people? Doesn't being a person with a lot of experience in this game make you kind of upset at people who make dumb mistakes? Because a lot of times when you're playing Medic, like I said, your performance is based on the performance of your teammates. And so it's really difficult when you're playing to kind of like decouple yourself from that. You're like, oh, like I popped a really good Uber, but my teammates fed. And so it didn't really work the way I wanted it to. Or, oh, I would have survived in this situation if my teammate hit their shots, but since they missed everything, the reason I died is not my fault, it's theirs. And I think that's just a very natural part of playing a team game. If you wanted to play a solo game where you weren't reliant on your teammates at all, then you'd be playing a 1v1 game like Quake or StarCraft or something else, right? The part of the fun of it is working with other people and working as a team. So, in my opinion, you should measure your performance based on the performance of your teammates, because there are things that you can control and do that impact your teammates. For example, it's very difficult to tell if someone is a good communicator, if they're good at comms, right? Like how good are my comms? How good is my Uber tracking? But you can measure that performance based on like how well your teammates are doing. So if I'm calling Uber percentages frequently, then my team shouldn't be getting caught out by enemy Ubers, because they should know when they have Uber advantage or Uber disadvantage, right? There's things like that. Like if I'm doing a good job calling the health of my teammates that were hurt, then maybe they won't be feeding as much. And so it is a team game, right? Like I think you should measure your performance on how well your teammates are doing to some extent. Some extent you cannot control it, some extent you can. And I think it's up to you to make your own judgment call to kind of understand like, okay, was it something I could have controlled? Or was it something like, nah, this person's just an idiot and they just did their own thing? And I think when that happens, it's out of your control at that point. You just accept it for what it is, and you accept what you can control, which is how you're playing, which is your own personal performance, and did you do the best that you can do? And that's all you can really, really control for in this game. Cool. Well, I hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoyed some of the Q&A. And let me know if you have any other questions. As always, you guys can always jump into my Discord channel. And I have, like I said, just a bunch of other people who are helping answer questions. It's a great community there to talk about the game and talk about getting better at the game. Also, the comment section of this video, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them there. I read all of your comments. So feel free to post questions. I'm going to try and answer questions on a weekly basis. So if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.